Today's presentation is going to come from a brand new, hot off the press book called The Essential Guide for Hiring and Getting Hired. This is written by Lou Adler. Lou Adler was a recruiter for many years and wrote a book called Hire with Your Head, and it was all about performance-based interviewing. It was really that the original book was directed to recruiters. And he said the reason that recruiters find it so difficult to hire good people is that they're terrible about designing job descriptions. The job postings are too specific. The job postings say you have to have 5 years experience, when sometimes somebody with 3 years experience could do a bang-up job in that particular job. And so he's a consultant. He has companies that are using his approach all over the world. And this book not only takes Hire with Your Head a step further, but it also includes job seekers. And it's how do you get through the process? How do you get around a poorly written job description? How do you ace that? How do you do a performance-based interview? So the whole book will have a chapter clearly directed toward recruiters, and then they'll say, and now for you job seekers, and it's got something related for job seekers. We'll be giving away 2 of these books as door prizes today. And then there's an entire place that's a chapter that's on interviewing strictly for the job seeker. So I started this last week. We had so many announcements and special things and fun stuff going on that I barely got through this the first half of this presentation, but we're going to zip through it and get to the end. One of the differentiators, according to Lou Adler, is what motivates you, what drives you, what is your motivation. And he says the world is generally divided up into 2 kinds of job seekers: those that are motivated extrinsically by things like money and prestige and job title, and those that are motivated more intrinsically, and they're looking more for a career. And Lou Adler is pretty adamant about preferring the people that are not motivated by money. And the longer you're unemployed, the more motivated by money you become. Because the more dire your situation becomes, and the more you think, I don't care if it's part of my career plan, I don't care if it's something I like, I need a job, I need an income. And so motivation, it's that whole Maslow's hierarchy. We go down to the basics. I got to pay my bills, I got to keep my house. And so your motivation changes with your situation, and I understand that. But lots of times within a job interview, they say what motivates you to do the best work. And the only people who are really allowed to be greedy are salespeople. And they are encouraged to be motivated by money because they want folks to get out there and scramble. So anyway, what this was, as far as recruiters are concerned, what Lou Adler recommends is that they throw out that long list of required skills and qualifications, and instead they say, this is what we want you to accomplish. And so instead of saying you have to have 5 years of this, you have to have a degree in this, they say, here's what we're going to want you to do. By the year's end, we want you to launch the new Apple iPad applications, or these are the projects we want you to lead. These are the performances that we want you to be responsible for. Can you do that? What can you tell me about your background that would indicate to me that you are capable of doing that? Have you done something similar in the past? And so it makes screening, if a company has got 2,000 applications and they're supposed to be whittling those down to a manageable number, it's nice if they're able to whittle them down by, do you have PMP, or do you have a degree, or do you have, these little checks in your box? It makes it easier to do that. This is a much more difficult kind of qualification to market, but of course he's used to working with recruiters who have very specific clients that they're trying to promote. He wants you to make sure that you very much understand the difference between a job and a career. And we talked about this last week, so I'm just going to kind of zoom over it, but there are 3 primary differences. Usually a career is longer. You think strategically about a career. Sometimes people are in the very same career field for their entire work life. And so there is an arc to it. There is a progression through a career. Some of us have progressions through jobs as well, but usually a career is something that's a little bit more strategic in planning. And then usually a career, there's more dedication. A career is something that you've given your life to this, whereas a job, you know, could come and go, sort of. So there is that. How to prepare for performance-based interview? Always prepare. Never try to wing it in an interview of any kind. See what you can do to prepare. Now, I will tell you a story about after I teach interviewing, and I teach a whole class on how to prepare for a job interview. But I did have a friend named Vicki who had been unemployed a very long time, and she mock interviewed. We do mock interviews down at the workforce office on Thursdays. She mock interviewed multiple times, and we were always so impressed with the amount of research that she had done before she interviewed for a job. She knew lots and lots of detailed information about companies and the people interviewing her and so forth. It was very impressive. But one week she had a particularly busy week. She was supposed to be applying for a job as a supervisor for the census, so you know this happened in 2010. She had to fill out the federal application. That's just a booger. It's way worse than the state. And she had 3 interviews scheduled all in the same week. So she knew she was not going to be able to do the same kind of detailed research that she normally did. So she decided she was going to concentrate on preparing for the one interview that she thought she had the best chance of acing, and the rest of them she thought, you know, I've interviewed so many times, I'm just going to wing it. Surely I can make it through those other 2. And the first interview that she had was with the Texas A&M Health Science Center in Round Rock, their new medical school. And the very first question they asked her was, what do you know about us? And she said, normally that is my very favorite interview question because I do so much work on researching companies before interviews that I know a lot. But this week I just didn't have the time. I mean, I know you're Texas A&M, you're headquartered in Bryan College Station, I know you got the jump on UT, you got the medical school going first, that's all I know. And she sensed that they were very unhappy, very disappointed with that answer. And so she thought, okay, well, I'm not getting this job. So she made a very quick decision that she was just going to have fun. She was going to relax. She was not going to worry about it. She wasn't going to worry about what is the question behind the question. She was just going to answer honestly. And one of the questions they asked her was, give me 5 adjectives that describe you in the workplace. And she gave sort of a Sarah Palin answer to that one. Not that she didn't know what an adjective was, but she said, I'm not going to give you 5 adjectives. I'm only going to give you 1 adjective. I'm fun. I'm probably the most fun IT person that you've ever interviewed. I love technology. I have lots of fun with technology. I don't think people should be afraid of it. And I try to make all my coworkers have as much fun as I do. And if you hire me, that's kind of the environment that I create. Anyway, she ended up getting the job. And so, of course, I'm going to be putting down here like 10 or 12 different rules about things you have to do. But bottom line is, give it your best shot. Do these things if you can, but be yourself. They want to hire somebody they like. They want to hire somebody they want to work with. But always prepare. Research the company. Know as much as you can about the company. Research the management team and specifically the people that are going to be interviewing you. Make sure you know some background about them. Not that you're going to say, well, I looked you up and. No. Just if you can find something that connects you with them, whether you both went to the same school, whether you've worked on similar projects, whether you're both runners, whatever the thing is, see what you can do to connect. Prepare your stories ahead of time. And you want to have a good story for every single primary job and characteristic that the company is looking for. If this is a project manager position, that they want somebody that meets tight deadlines, you better have a number of stories prepared about projects you've managed that you had to meet tight deadlines. You've got to have a lot of very specific stories that illustrate each thing that the company is looking for. Prepare your questions ahead of time. And there are lists and lists, there are whole books that are interview questions that you can ask the interviewer. But I encourage you to be a little bit more individualized than that, and do some research and make your questions fit what you've learned in your research. You know, I read an article about you in the Business Journal, and I noticed that you're acquiring companies that do these things. Does that mean you're moving more into the consumer goods line? Or something, you know, to show that you cared enough to do some research and make your questions be intelligent. Understand how your job that you are interviewing for relates to the company. I had a client who interviewed for a technical job one day, and the question was, did you notice the long list of job duties that's part of this job description? He said, I did notice that long list. And they said, which of those job duties do you think should be your highest priority? I think that's a hard question. And he said, well, according to your mission statement, the primary mission of this company is this. Now, if that's still the case, my highest priority should be to this job duty, because that's what most closely supports your primary mission. So he showed he had done the research, he understood how that worked, and how important, how his job fit in with the overall strategy of the company. I thought this was a weird suggestion in the Lou Adler book, and they said, don't look at your resume. We have, in our mock interviews, there have been times when people have had a resume sitting on the table in front of them during the mock interview, and they'll be talking and answering questions, and all of a sudden we'll ask them a question, and they'll go, and the eye contact is broken, and it's like, what? You don't know your details? You don't know your story? It immediately puts them in a very bad place. You need to know your resume. You need to know the dates when you worked places. There are some companies that will say, well, I'm going to go back to your first job that you have listed on your resume. I want you to tell me whatever. What did you achieve there? Or what was something you learned at that job that then you were able to apply to your next job? I asked that of a zookeeper one time. She had a lot of different zoo jobs, and her answers were fabulous. At the very first one, you know, she said, I learned how to manage small teams or whatever. And then the next one, it was, they introduced some rare animals, and I had to learn how to take care of them. So I had to do a lot more research. And the next one, and each one was something that then was able to be applied to the one after that. So know your resume, know your achievements, your accomplishments, and how they relate to this job that you're interviewing for now. What did you learn on each job? Why did you make each career change? This is a Lou Adler series of questions. He likes to go through your resume and say, why did you take this job? And what he's looking for is what motivates you. And what he likes to hire is people who have a career plan. People who think in the long term, people who do not make their decisions totally motivated by money. Now, I would imagine that he totally understands if somebody says, I'd been unemployed a long time, and this offer was for more money than I had ever made before, and I felt, you know, that even though it was a little bit outside my normal career field, I just felt I couldn't turn it down. If you understand the difference, you know, what is your career plan? How are you going to try to morph that job into something that's career related? I think Lou would like that. Did you accomplish your objective? And if not, why not? If you took a job because you thought it would give you an opportunity to get more experience doing this, for example, were you able to do that, or were you not? What got in the way? And then, of course, what did you accomplish on every single job you've ever had? He wanted you to have his little how you answer question formula is the acronym SAFW. I have a similar one that I teach, which is the 3-layer answer. But so he wants you to, when you're asked a question, make a statement, and then amplify the statement. Give a few examples. I think one is enough. And then wrap it up. So that's sort of his thing. I think if you give examples to every single question that you're asked, they get overstoried. So when I say a 3-layer answer, I'm like your basic answer at the bottom layer, sometimes it's one word. What is your greatest strength as an employee? Organization, okay, fine. Usually you need more than just that. The second layer amplifies it, fleshes it out, gives a little bit more information. Every job I've had to organize lots of different projects. I have these systems that I use. You know, I've got 59 sticky notes for a current project I'm working on, whatever. So you've amplified it. And lots of times answers are perfectly fine with just 2 layers. But that third layer is a story to illustrate it. When you say, in fact, here's a project that I did, and anytime you start talking about a specific, it immediately makes that answer, I think, a more effective answer. There's a picture in our mind. You're telling a very specific story about a situation, the actions you took to solve a problem or make it better or whatever. So that story piece, if you can insert it, is very effective. But if you had a story for every single answer, oh my God, it's like no more. Ask the interviewer to describe the real job needs. See if you can, at some point early in the interview, sort of take over and say exactly how does this job fit in with the overall strategy, or what are the primary objectives of this job. And in one, there's a blog that the book refers you to where a man said, this is how he does it. He says, I want to make sure I understand how I can contribute optimally in this role. Do you mind if I ask a few questions up front? And then you ask things like that. And that is, for those of you who are in sales, that's how you sell a product usually. The salesperson starts by asking questions. So what are your needs? What's not working with the current product that you have? What are you trying to accomplish with a new product? You know, why do you want to buy a new product? So you're trying to ask questions to see if then you, with your product, or you with yourself, are going to be able to fulfill that need and solve that problem. It's solution selling rather than here's a great product. You know, we got this car for you. We can give you a you want floor mats? That's transactional selling, where you can't really design the product to fit the need. But when you are the solution, you want to find out what is the problem. Focus on what he says is focus on the opportunity and ignore compensation. Oh my God, ignore compensation. I read that book cover to cover, and that's the hardest part for me, is that he says don't even talk about it. Really see if this is going to be a career move for you, a good career move for you, and don't worry about what it pays. If it's a good career move for you, if it's something you're good at, the money will follow. If it's something that you take because of the money and it's not a good career move, it's not going to last. It'll be a short-term job and you'll be back wondering what happened. So he's all about thinking about career growth instead of thinking about money. The 2-question performance-based interview, he says I ask 2 questions. He asks a lot more questions beyond that, but he talks about 2 specific questions, and I think it's not a bad exercise for everybody to be prepared with these 2 questions. And one is, what do you consider your major accomplishment? And sometimes it'll be the major accomplishment of your career. Sometimes it'll be, what did you accomplish in each one of your jobs? And try to choose an accomplishment that is related to what you're applying for. And that business about, tell me about a time when you achieved something with a tight deadline, or before you had all the stuff, you didn't have the resources, you didn't have the time. Those are frequently the very best stories of all, because it really shows how you perform under pressure. And I thought her story about South Padre was great. She threw that thing together in a month. That was fabulous. And then another question that they like to ask is, they give you a typical problem sort of from that job, or one that would be typically found in that job. How would you solve this problem? And he says what they're really looking for, more than how would you solve this problem, is what are the steps you would take? How do you logically think your way through to get to a solution? And so that's really what they want to hear. That was with the fewest skills and the least experience. Demonstrate how you develop solutions. What is the process that you go through in order to solve a problem. There is a YouTube video, and I think this is also on the Google website, that talks about the current Google interview process for programmers when they're trying to hire programmers. And Google, for the longest time, has struggled with how to hire good people. And there are books about the goofy trick questions that they tried to ask, and they discovered that was not a good indicator of who was a good employee. They did personality tests on the people that worked for them and figured out what were the characteristics of the most successful people, and they tried to give those same personality tests. They said that really ended up not being a great way to hire people. So they really struggle with it, but this little video it seems so humane. And they said, we'll give programmers an assignment, write some code. How would you write code for this? And they said, but we don't really care. People are so nervous. We don't care if it's right or not. We want to see what is the process that you're going through in order to reach that goal. As long as your process is good, your thought process is good, they're good with that. How do you solve problems? Have good questions prepared and ask questions that are relevant to the job rather than self-serving questions. And I think you all know better than that. Don't ask questions about things that are related to benefits or salary or leave time or any of those things. Talk about how you can contribute to the company. And then always at the end of an interview, what's the next step? Where do we go from here? Now, one of the things that we advise you, one of the closings that we advise you to do in our little classes is for you to say, now that you know a little bit more about my background, do you have any concerns about my ability to be successful in this role? And of course, if they say a concern, you've got to jump on that immediately. You've got to answer it, respond to it, make it go away, or make it be as small as possible. And then, or if they say we have no concerns, we wouldn't have interviewed you if we had any concerns, great. Where do we go from here? What's the next step? Do you want me to come in on Monday? Any of those. The things that he said they look for that are indicators of a quality applicant, did the job seeker, they look back to the early years, did you receive difficult assignments? And so sometimes they'll give the really good employees the toughest assignments. And the folks that they really don't think can handle it, they give them the easy ones. So think back a little bit, and when you're telling your stories, you can say, I hadn't been with the company but 4 months, and they called me in and they gave me this big project to manage, and I was terrified, but they had more faith in me than I had in myself, but they mentored me through it, but this is what I did, and they trusted me, and it was a great learning experience. So did you get difficult assignments? And if you did, bring that out and tell them that in the interview. Did you have early exposure to senior management? And some of you early on were sort of identified as being the golden children. You were the top 2%. You were the ones that had a little bit easier access. Management wanted to know who you were, and you were on a fast track because you were really good at what you did. Bring that out. People that know how to interact with senior managers and executives, and maybe even in a small company, it's all kind of flatlined, and there aren't the hierarchies that separate you. Everybody's working together. But it's another thing to bring out if you can. I was experimenting with leadership roles in teams. When you were assigned to work on teams, did you assume a leadership role, or were you given a leadership role? Were you given a leadership role even over other people who had more seniority? How did you work with that? How did you keep that person who felt that they should be the leader of the team? How did you keep that person still motivated to helping you, to working with you? Those are all political and kind of dicey interpersonal issues. So think about that. Have you ever had situations like that? Seek opportunities for more responsibility, even though there was a chance of failure. Lots of times people will look for that. Are you a risk taker? Are you somebody that wanted to try things? I mentioned last week about a book that that I read. I hope it's still in print because it was a great book. It was called Success Profiles, and it followed a number of executives and told the different decisions they had made throughout their careers. And one of them I remember was a guy who took a chance on leading an overseas subsidiary that was failing. And if it had gone under, then his career probably would have been over. He probably would have been in lesser positions for the rest of his career. But he thought, if I can turn it around, if I can make the difference, and then chances are, I'll be the success story, and I'll move up into corporate. And that's exactly how it worked out. But he took the risk. He thought, it might fail, but he took the risk and made it happen.